So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Analog Legends. I'm Wesley, joined as always by Spencer Scott Holmes, and hope you'll join us tonight for a nostalgic discussion. We're just going to kick back, relax, and talk about some Disney, some good old nostalgic 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, all the way back Disney. Because what we're going to do tonight is we're going to discuss our top 5 favorite animated Disney movies. Now, there's some caveats, which we'll get to in a moment, but look, here's the deal. These little clamshells right here had a chokehold on us as kids in the 90s. We're Renaissance kids. And, we criticize, some of these younger parents, and I'm in that group of, we give the kids screens everywhere we go, and, they're watching stuff all the time. Let's not pretend like mom and dad didn't show us in front of some clamshell VHS all the damn time to shut us up. I know it happened. It happened to me. So
the thing people forget is, like, when the TV was invented in the 40s, that was like the first thing people were like, oh shit, it's a babysitter. Like it didn't take very long for them to realize that right off the bat. That's why you get that George Lucas, Steven Spielberg like era of kids, because that's what they were. They were just planted right in front of the TV all day and just said, here, watch old movies. Parents are gonna go out and do their thing. TV dad is here to watch.
Yeah, I think that's one difference between us and last week we talked a lot about our age bracket and us growing up and what we miss about when we grew up, and differences between Gen X, us, and how we kind of fit in the middle. But one thing I do find differently is they were a little bit more latchkey than us. A lot of them, not all of them, but that was a rampant problem that they had. There were a lot of latchkey kids, and we had it pretty balanced. I felt like I was outside a lot, playing a lot. Like, I still got a lot of screen time. I was watching TV and I was playing video games, but I was outside playing a lot, and I make sure my kids do that too. But but yeah, I still found time to watch a hell of a lot of Disney. A lot.
Yeah, well, and I think that's sort of the thing is that was the pure balance act, because a lot of times what would happen is you would watch TV. Like, I just remember me and my buddies would watch like Predator, and then we would go outside and play Predator. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, so it just like that's what would kind of happen, and that would go for a whole lot of other stuff too. Anything from X-Men to Power Rangers and yada, yada, yada. But I think that was it. It had like the combo. You were inside watching stuff. A lot of times it was like, during the day you're outside just roaming the woods or roaming the neighborhood or whatnot on your bikes and whatnot, and then at nighttime you just came in and just watched a copious amount of TV, whether it was video games or movies or whatnot, because it's nighttime. What else are you gonna do?
Yeah. Not homework.
Yeah, not homework. When I was growing up, I literally made a stringent rule that I did not do homework when I was at home. And technically, so I'd get it done like when I was in class, but I was like, God forbid, am I coming home to do homework? No. Home time is for me, not for school. I got past that already.
Get enough of my time. Today was my son's very first day at kindergarten.
Ooh, that's a big moment. I remember my days, the first day of kindergarten. It was back in the olden days. Yeah. The internet wasn't even a thing yet.
No, it wasn't. It was a bittersweet thing. Like, he did some pre-K last year, and then he's been flirting with school for like 2 weeks now. So we did like a staggered entry last week where they just got to know the kids, and then we had to meet the teacher yesterday, and then today was the full thing. And I held it together pretty good. Mm-hmm. I was a little teary-eyed walking out. My wife, she did worse than when I did the pre-K thing. I was the bad one. I fell apart then, and she was making fun of me. And today I did a little better, but not much. But it's speaking of school, but with Disney though, what I was thinking about was when they rolled out that thing. Did y'all have the carts, the media carts with the TV on it and the VCR?
Oh, yes. In school?
Yeah, that was a national thing, I think.
I think so. Well, I think that was just the easiest way to put a TV on, was you could put a TV, then you got a shelf for the VCR. And one time I found one of those ones with a built-in, it had a Laserdisc player on there. I was like, what? So it was in the science room, of course, of all places. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, there's a Laserdisc here. I wonder when the last time this was used.
Oh, man. We had a science teacher. He was also a football coach, Coach Larson. And of course this guy, looking back, I would have been best friends with this guy, but he had a laser disc player, and I can't remember what movie we watched on. I think it was the Core. The one, the Aaron Eckhart movie where I think it's Aaron, I can't even remember. I think they were traveling to the center of the earth. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
And we watched that in science class, and it was probably full of pseudoscience and bullshit, but it was on Laserdisc, so it was cool.
Hey, and you know what? Yeah, that classic thing is that it kept those kids quiet for an hour, each time.
Yeah.
That's the thing about that. They put down the screen, but let's be honest, it's been used for over 70 years to keep kids to shut up.
Well, that's why I couldn't be a teacher, because I'd be in class. Have you ever seen so and so? The kids would be like, no. I'm like, fuck it, we're watching Gladiator tomorrow. We're watching this tomorrow. Like, I would be so bad. I mean, I'd probably be a history teacher. Yeah,
I think that's the best way, because, always like my history teachers, that was pretty much what they were. They were like, you talk history and be like, hey, here's a cool movie to relate to it. You guys ever seen The Patriot? Here you go.
That was my next example, was The Patriot. Yeah.
We're talking about World War II. Here's Saving Private Ryan. Yeah. Oh, we're talking about, people moving westward expansion. Here's Far and Away. I learned a lot of great movies in the class,
Knight's Tale I first saw at school.
Really? Oh my gosh!
Mm-hmm. It was
they're like, this is how rock and roll was first introduced to Europe.
It was actually an English class, not a history class, and she was the Chaucer and all that stuff. And so that's how we saw it. But I saw a lot of Disney movies in school. I remember the first time I saw Little Mermaid was at school, and I remember being in fourth grade and watching Lion King.
Yeah.
And just so many different times. And it was just, man, the 90s, it's going to be hard for kids to, not Disney's obviously still a big thing. It's not, it's going through like a lull right now.
Yeah.
It has its peaks and valleys, but it's still massive. But man, in the 90s, that shit had a chokehold on us. The VHS, they'd bring these out. You had a limited time to buy them before they throw their ass back in the vault. Then you had the newer stuff come out after the movies were huge, massive hits, because all of them were in the 90s pretty much. Even the not big ones, Hercules. I guess you could throw Pocahontas in there. They still made a lot of money and did well.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is Disney understood that home video market probably better than any other video company did. They hit that hard. And it's one of those ones, Disney's one of those companies that in the last 20 years, I have this very I'll say this, Disney does make some damn fine movies, but it's when I think of them as a business, it makes me almost kind of disgusted. That's kind of how it is. I really don't like to go see a Disney movie in theaters. It's one of those ones, the least amount of money I can kind of give them, I feel the better, because they just literally eat up every other movie company they're the Blob thing and Akira, go into town. So I have this kind of mixed thing, but then you'll watch certain old movies of Disney, and even just in the 90s, perfect example, when we're watching Heavyweights or something like that. Yeah. You're you think about God, they just knock those movies out of the park left and right. I mean, fantastic kids movies, amazing animated movies when they used to animate them. When they're still traditional. Though I will say, some of there's been a couple of the newer CG ones, though I'm not the biggest CG fan, but Moana, super good. I was really impressed with that one. Actually, I liked all those ones, even Frozen and so on like that. I was they're still good. It's not, you know what I mean? But there's just other stuff too where it's just when I see the Disney logo, I don't get as much of those some people oh my gosh, Disney and something like that. Go, there's that wicked mouse again. What's he got up his sleeve this time?
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely lost some of its luster. It's an IP machine now, and you can it's not new for them to rip stuff off. I mean, they were going back to these old fairy tales and turning those out, and so, they'll almost put a Disney stamp on them. Yeah, and get mad when people try to remake them. You can't make the Real Little Mermaid. That's our thing. Well, no, it's actually not. Well, it is now. So, but I don't know, man. That run from '89, I would say from Little Mermaid to kind of Milan.
Yeah, well, that's
really.
like the strong one. I mean, you could say the full length of that animated one goes till Princess and the Frog, though. Sadly, Princess and the Frog is like the one that like told them that like, nope, never again.
Yeah. Well, also there was that group in the middle too, like that the Home on the Range and stuff like that.
Oh, like Lilo and Stitch, though. Like they're kind of like the alternative. Like they're still popular, of course. Lilo and Stitch is always
Lilo.
a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one, and then the other big one, and that's I think become big. It wasn't as much at the time, but people have really come around to it as Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, I forgot because that's the Disney one.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of them that, people have come around to, but there was also some like, Dinosaur was a mess. And I've never seen Home on the Range. It was that bear one.
Yeah. Brother Bear, Little
Brother Bear. Never saw that. I think Phil Collins was involved in that one too, and I never saw it. And, so like Tarzan and Mulan, I think it's kind of like the end of the Renaissance, really. And then, then they had their IP renaissance the past 10 years, really, with the Marvel and the Star Wars and all that stuff. But, it has lost its luster. But, man, it felt like such a special thing when we were kids. When you hear, now your featured presentation, and you're like, oh, shit, it's about to get real. And we were able to go back and watch all the old stuff on repeat and have that part of our lives, where it was such a special thing back in the day when our parents and grandparents got to see Robin Hood again, or Snow White again, or Cinderella or Pinocchio. Like if you bought that shit when it was out of the vault, you could watch it whenever you wanted.
You know, there's a smart thing they always did too on those VHSs that I noticed way back in the day is they don't have the date on any of those movies on there, so it doesn't tell you what year that is. There's really only one factor that mostly is like the telltale sign of what year it is, and it's the music. The music will pretty much tell you when that movie was made. But beyond that, I think that's the thing, and they knew it too, is because of like the quality that especially the old Disney movies, like the old some of those ones. I watched Snow White like not too long ago. I bought it on Blu-ray and whatnot, and it was just one of those ones like that movie it first animated feature, and it's beyond impressive. It makes other movies in like the last like 40 years almost like put to shame for how good that one is, just like right then and there. I mean, but then again, they had to put everything into that.
Oh yeah, that was the whole business for a while. And the follow-ups were like that, Pinocchio and Dumbo and Fantasia.
Yeah,
they were all good. They had that kind of weird era, the Aristocats.
I'm personally a big fan of that era that generally people don't like is actually one of my more nostalgic eras of Disney. I think it's just because when I was growing up, that was like all the VHSs and so on were just all from the 70s and 80s. So I'm kind of like very partial for that section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that stuff's still good. It's still really, really good. It's but they saved, Michael Eisner saved Disney. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that the people my wife follows a lot of Disney bloggers and stuff, and they're all like park centric.
Yeah.
And those people, they have an axe to grind with Michael Eisner, and I get it. They have a reasonable axe, but when it comes to media, dude saved everything. Let's go back to the fairy tales. Let's do, that run from Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and all that stuff, Aladdin, all amazing. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of wish that my kids had the opportunity to live in the era, because they won't watch the 2D animation as much. Once they've seen that, they don't really want to go back too much.
Well, and I've always wondered that with kids, because that was one of the first things I thought myself once, they started going hard CG and everything like that, is I go, now do kids look at like 2D animation nowadays and go, oh, that looks like stop motion animation in a sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it looks like to them, that would be, I guess, even though I like this movie, but like, it'd be like us watching The Lost World, like the old fashioned one, or like, King Kong, you know what I mean? Like, it would be like, oh, that's like that's not Jurassic Park animation, that, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't look like that ridiculous different. I wonder if like in kids' minds, that's how they look at 2D animation. Like, it just looks very archaic.
I think to my kid, my kids can't articulate that yet, but I definitely noticed that. Like, my little one is more apt to watch older stuff than my older one is. But even when they do watch regular animated movies, what's funny is they watch the late 90s, early 2000s, they'll watch Tarzan, Treasure Planet. Mm-hmm. They'll watch, Princess and the Frog. They like that. They that's the ones they watch. I cannot get them to watch Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. I can't get them to watch any of those things. It's so weird, but
it's weird. So it's weird what they'll gravitate towards.
Yeah, and I think it's because those newer ones use some of the computer techniques in them, even though they're hand drawn. It looks different. Tarzan's the first one that started really doing that.
Yeah,
I don't know. So, but how about we go ahead and jump into our top fives?
I think so, and we have just a couple of rules and parameters here.
Yes,
and one, the movie's pretty much got to be like 99%. Fully animated, so, and no CG. It can't be a CG movie. Not saying it can't have CG in the movie, like we've said, like Tarzan has or Beauty and the Beast has, and so on like that. But for the most part, it's got to be hand drawn.
Yeah.
And then 3, it's got to be a Disney, not a Pixar one.
Yeah, and we're not anti Pixar. I love like Wall-E, Up. Some of the best movies I've ever seen, but it's just
I always look at Pixar as like even though it's like it's owned by Disney, it's like I look at that as a completely different thing though. I don't look at like they're at all the same.
I feel like it's more of a Lucasfilm thing than it is.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like George Lucas is the one who put together. Well, he didn't put them together himself. He just had somebody else put it together for his money.
Right.
But, the Pixar computer and then it's also like I think of it like okay, first it's Lucas. And then Lucas is like, I can't. We spent so much goddamn money on you stupid kids. Like, you can't figure out a fucking movie out of this stuff. Like, no, I don't want to see your lampshade bullshit. Steve Jobs, you got fucking $50 million in your pocket. Hand it over. You can have their stupid shit.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is I always think it's more of then I think of it like being a big Steve Jobs thing. Yeah. Before it is even Disney.
Oh, well, great. You made a fucking Dire Straits video. Congratulations.
Yeah, look at Weird Al made one too.
Yeah, he did make one too. Oh, wow. Well, so no Pixar or other studios. We're doing just straight Disney animation, classics. If you want to throw the Black Diamond thing in there, this is Black Diamond. I don't know.
Black Diamond.
Yeah. They don't mean people. Disney VHS aren't worth anything. I cannot go.
So many of them.
You go on any VHS like collector's thing, and there's always people on there like, I've got this Black Diamond Lion King. No one gives a fuck.
No
one. It's not worth shit. It's worth 25 cents.
Yeah, even if you got a wiener on your Little Mermaid cover, it's still not worth much more.
No. Oh man, perverted Disney animators, man.
Well, that's the funny thing and that's from the very beginning because it was funny. Like it wasn't that long ago, maybe 6 months to maybe a year ago. I was listening to like this history of animation book on tape, and that's how you know when you're old is when you refer to it as a book on tape. But yeah, but that works for our VHS and all that stuff. But it was all pretty much about like the Fleischer Studio and Disney, and kind of went back and forth with the stories and so on like that. But they're like that was the first thing when the Snow White guys were like so overworked that like they just got to the point where they're just like, well, I don't care, I'm just gonna draw these dwarves like banging Snow White and everything like that, and making animated pieces out of it, and just doing crazy like ridiculous stuff. It's the 30s and the 20s. It's like that's what you do. Yeah. And then, like, my favorite part is like Walt's like, okay, we're gonna throw this big old celebration party. It's gonna be great. You know what? Thank you guys so much for an excellent job. Putting together, the first animated picture. So you like rents out this hotel, and all the animators are there, and then they just get blasted, wasted, hammered, probably doing old school drugs, and then just start banging each other like all over like the pool and so on, destroy the whole hotel. And Walt's like, never again. Never are we throwing a party afterwards. You ruined it for the future generations.
We're family friendly, guys. Good Lord. That's just, I don't, like being cooped up in there makes them debaucherous as fuck. They were just, oh my God. Especially Hollywood at that era. Just, oh my God.
Well, that was the thing is like animation stemmed into porn like 2 seconds later. It was like, it was almost like somebody learned how like, they learned how to like animate a dinosaur, and the guy's like, huh, what happened? It's like somebody fucks somebody now. Oh, let's go with that. there's just that what if question, and then
well, if I could draw this, I could draw. Yeah.
But and then the other fine thing too is that like Snow White, like they didn't make that movie to be like a kids movie or something like that. That was actually made just to be like a regular movie, like to fit in the same block is that anybody from ages 10 to 90 would go see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were always kind of marketed that way, but it wasn't. It was a kid's thing,
Yeah. Well, I think it's just because animation wasn't initially. It was kind of like an anybody thing. And then as like the 40s came, it switched gears.
Yeah. Yeah. The good eras. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to go first with your number 5?
Yeah. I guess we'll start and I'll count our way up.
Okay.
My number 5, I was tossing this one around here. I was having a real hard time.
Yeah, this was tough.
What I was truly gonna go with, and I'm still looking at. I literally have 4 of them written in my.
Well, go ahead and we'll do this. We'll do an honorable mention.
Okay, if we do an honorable mention,
just a quick one. Yeah.
I'm gonna go. My honorable mention is gonna be Oliver and Company.
Okay, that's a fun one.
Because that one, I'm going off a lot of these movies I'm choosing. I'm kind of going like, what was a big deal when I was a kid? Like the ones that really stuck out to me. And I really liked Oliver and Company a lot. I liked the tunes in there. It had the Huey Lewis. It had the Billy Joel and all kinds of stuff. Great songs. And yeah, that one just, I even had like the little Oliver, like, stuffed animal from back then and whatnot. So I had a lot going there. And then, so that's my quick one on there. And then I'm going to say my number 5. I'm going to say Atlantis, actually.
That's a fun one. And it's a beautiful one.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones, I came to that movie a little bit late. Like, I only watched that movie maybe like 5 or 6 years ago for the first time. Because I think when that came out, that was in that Disney era where I was like, well, one, it's like, you're like a teenager at that point. Disney, I got anime. I don't need this stuff. You know what I mean? You think you're so macho at those points in life. You think you're so macho if you're anime.
Yeah. I didn't even get into anime, and I thought I was good for it.
So I skipped out like on like all those ones, and then it was like same with like Lilo and Stitch and all that. I didn't see any of those till kind of like a little bit later in life, But then kind of come back to Atlantis. I was like, oh, Atlantis is a really cool one. It's got a cool story in it, and it's actually quite different for Disney because it's not like the norm. Like they're doing, because a lot of times I'll say this. I think a lot of the Disney movies are kind of geared first and foremost towards girls. And, the easy way you can kind of dictate that, who's the main character of the movie? The main character kind of tells you who it's sort of for. But it's Alice in Wonderland. Is it Cinderella? Is it Snow White? Well, there's very few kind of like male lead, Disney movies. And you could tell this one, they're going for that same feel as like Titan AE that Fox did.
I was going to say, yeah.
In Titan AE was like, to me, I always call that, it's like heavy metal, but made for like kids in a sense. That's literally what they're going for in there. I mean, it really just needs it has like a rock soundtrack, but I mean, it could almost even have, it's got the music of the time. But yeah, Atlantis is one of those ones I've only seen it a few times, but every single time I watch it, I go, it's cool. And it's the total tail end. It's like the third to last, 2D Disney animated movie. They're trying something very, almost like, old school steampunky, scientific and whatnot. And it's just got a great cast of characters in it. It's fun, and then, it's action packed, and it's just a different one. I think that's what makes it very unique, and it's kind of almost a hidden gem Disney flick.
I think I've only seen it once. And but what I'll say about that one, it's funny you mentioned Titan AE because I was kind of thinking like Treasure Planet and Atlantis both kind of just have a little bit of a Don Bluth element to it, just a little bit. I know for sure Treasure Planet does. Like some of the creature designs in there look very Don Bluthy. Yeah. So I always wondered if he came back to that. Then Michael J. Fox is in Atlantis, so. I mean,
yeah, so, it adds there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it for that. I mean, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I've tried to get my kids into that one too because I've watched bits and pieces of it recently, but I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing in a long, long time. But that and Treasure Planet both are really, really cool. I'll give you my honorable mention, and then I'll give you my 5th honorable mention. I'm I'm gonna go with Emperor's New Groove, and it was this or my fifth. Could go back and forth between that and the honorable mention. It was really, really close, but I have more nostalgia for my fifth pick. But Emperor's New Groove is so damn funny. It is one of the funniest Disney movies, and I've yet to watch the documentary, but what I know of that movie, it was a completely different film. Like, they completely changed that film around midway through. And there's this great documentary where it's just wild how that film was even made. It's just, they completely shifted the whole fucking movie. And of course, David Spade being in it. I love David Spade.
Oh, it's gotta.
Yeah, but the characters in it are really funny. It has really good energy. I think it kind of got caught up in that Disney lull that we were in. But over the years, it's really started to become a very popular one. And I think if it had come out in the 90s, like as opposed to like maybe like a Hercules or Hunchback, which I like those movies, but if it had come out then, I think it would have done extremely well. But it wasn't at the right time anymore. You know what I mean?
Is that, and probably what's also kind of brought it back strong is there was the next generation that found that movie at the right time, and that probably kind of is strong and nostalgic for them, because that's one of those ones. I did see that movie. I didn't see it in the cinemas, but I did see it. I remember it on TV when it first came out, and then I saw it maybe once, like in the last 10 years again. That's about all I've ever seen. And I remember it being solid, but like it's just one of those ones I've only seen it like twice.
Yeah, it's really good. My kids do like that one, and my wife was the one introducing me to it. I probably saw it for the first time maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn, this is a good one. They were on their A game for this one. This was not like some of the other movies in that era. Early 2000s. It was really, really good. But so that's my honorable mention. My number 5 is not as good as my honorable mention. But I have a lot of nostalgia for it because I was amazed by this movie as a kid. Absolutely floored by it. It's one of the few Disney sequels, but it's Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, I'm gonna say this. That's my number 4.
Is it okay? Okay, so we'll have to, because that opening thing with the golden eagle and all that stuff, some of my favorite animation that Disney's ever done. Oh gosh, so good. This, like when they're going towards Ayers Rock or whatever they call that place, and they're like, the camera's like zooming in low, and then when the kid falls off the cliff and all that's like some of the best. I remember seeing that for the first time at a friend's house when I was little, and probably right after it came out on VHS, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I kind of missed my radar, and I immediately had to go ask my mom to buy it for me, and I watched it a lot when I was a kid. I haven't seen it in a long time, but man, that movie was fun.
You know, that's the same way I felt too. As I put that on my list because I felt like I had such nostalgic childhood moments with that and watched it many a times growing up. But ironically, it's one of those ones I think about that like I probably haven't seen in like 20 years, 25 years probably, and maybe even more than I might even say even more than that. But it's one of those ones that I think about it all the time. I'm like, I got to throw that one on again. You know what I mean? I mean, I'll throw the first one on too, maybe just to remember that one. But that second one is the one that stood out to me so much. And plus, I love the Australian theme and all that kind of stuff there. Even as a kid, like I was like, oh, dude. I think also just, you know, I had Crocodile Dundee's around that time too. So I feel like it all comes together. There was a good like late 80s and the early 90s. Like we're very pro Australia that period.
Yeah, apparently there's this thing going on since the Olympics that they hate us apparently, which that's not been my experience. I've met a lot of Australians through podcasting. They've all been nice as hell to me.
Yeah, I've always had great people. See, I always look at Australia. That's like America's cousin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, you know, they got shipped off that direction. We got shipped off this way. It's
they're just as degenerate and colonial as we are.
And then we got Canada, who's like, you know, like our young sibling who tries to do everything right and in a sense gets everything wrong.
I can't disagree.
Yeah, the Canadians say the same thing too. You know. Yeah,
that's true. But yeah, Rescuers Down Under, I did watch the opening to that recently, and unfortunately it was one of the days I had to take my kid to school, and I was like, man, I wish I would turn this on a different time because they were into it, I was into it. I think I might turn it on tomorrow. Fuck it, I'm gonna turn on that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I might have to too. I'm gonna just pull out the VHS and go old school with it.
There you go. Well, so we know my number 5 and your number 4.
Yeah.
So I guess you can jump
you could go to your number 4 now.
We'll do that. And this is where the list got really, really rough for me. And I think it's very apparent that you're hearing 2 guys do a Disney list, because it would be very different if you're 2 girls do a Disney list. Because, or leaving out some of the big, I'll say this before I go any further. I think the best Disney movie, the best one, not my favorite, but the best one is Beauty and the Beast. That's the best one.
Yeah, that's like the one. If I would say, I like that one a lot. Still, it's sadly, it's sadly not on my list. But I kind of picked my list in a way that I just the way I am. I kind of like I want some kind of like a little bit more oddball ones. But that one, that's like the one. If you had to pick one movie to be like tell me why Disney's good or Disney animation is good, that's the one you'd be like, here, look at this. If you don't like this one, then obviously there's no reason to go any further.
No, the thing was nominated for Best Picture, not Best Animated Picture. I think it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones, like, I've seen that one quite a bit, even recently, too. Like, it always holds up. It's always good, Music is good. Everything is good. So I think it's fair to shout that out, because we are 2 dudes making this list, but I recognize what's great. So, yeah, this whole thing was tough. So my next one, because I have some surprising ones down the list. I'm gonna go with Aladdin. That's my number 3.
Well, definitely more overlap than next week, but we'll find a way to shift some stuff in there. But Aladdin's good. Aladdin is so good.
That was the one. It just hit me at the total right time when that came out. I saw it in cinemas. I had to get it on VHS. I have like the entire action figures from like that time period from it. I have the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo game. Like there's so much. That's the thing. Yeah, both of those and both of those games are amazing, and it's cool that they're completely different games too. Like that's like one of the, it's one the Super Nintendo one's made by Capcom, and it's great and fantastic, and then the Sega Genesis one, I think it's made by Virgin, or at least it's a producer. But I think so. Both those games, fantastic. Aladdin itself, and I'll say this, I know this is one of those weird ones, but like that's almost like that's one of the few ones in the Disney Renaissance that you would say it's kind of a almost like a male-oriented one, because you have a main character that's a man. I mean, you do have Jasmine in there for a princess and everything, but that's one of the few ones where that is. But that one, just the whole thing about it, like I already like that Aladdin story, because I remember there's the Popeye, or the Fleischer one, the Aladdin the 40 Thieves or whatever, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, I think is what the Fleischer cartoon's called. So all that stuff of that time period, I think that's just a fantastic story. The characters are great. You got Robin Williams in there, of all things, too, chewing scenery beyond anybody known to mankind, and we know, as we've talked before in a previous via VHS, he gets that sort of practice for the character almost in Ferngully right beforehand.
Yeah, he's great in Ferngully too. He's slightly upstaged by Tim Curry in that one, just being a ginormous slut in Ferngully. But man, yeah, Aladdin, I remember seeing it in theaters. It was my favorite for a really, really long time. As I've gotten older, my taste changed a little bit, but basically for me on this list, 4 through 1 are interchangeable almost. I could one day say Aladdin's my favorite. It's just, it's so good. It was what made me really fall in love with Disney as a kid. It's definitely the one I watched the most as a kid. Second most for me.
Yeah, this one was by far the one I put a lot of time into that tape.
Yeah, it's Robin Williams. Absolutely kills it. He's hilarious. Just full. It's amazing that they got Cocaine Robin because I think he was not doing that stuff anymore. But boy, his energy was still at that level, and just riffing and going crazy. I mean, they probably had enough footage if they wanted to use that stuff for when they did the live action version. They probably could have done a Robin Williams live action, and had some extra stuff in there. But I mean, the only negative thing you can say about his performance is it's slightly dated because some of the like references and stuff. But man, it's so good.
Yeah, and there's so much about it. I mean, gosh, even at that time, I had like a birthday party that was all like Aladdin themed, and it had like the Aladdin napkins and the paper plates and all the stuff that you could have bought it like right then in that probably transition period between cinema to VHS. Yeah, that one just to me stands out so much. I love the songs too. The songs in that one, like I can sing them all like hardcore. Like if someone's gonna throw on some Disney tunes, like I'm always like, no, you know what, you gotta throw some of those.
Like me,
you gotta throw that Riff Raff Street Rat one. That one to me, like as a kid, I was like, that's how I feel. I can relate to that. I feel like the poor kid. I feel like the poor kid in my town.
Yeah. I have this monkey eaten in 3 weeks.
I'm gonna show them all one day.
Wait till I find that lamp. Yeah, no, Aladdin is so damn good, and it was a little bit more male focused, even though it does have a really good. It's a lot like Beauty and the Beast, where there's a lot for both boys and girls. I think Beauty and the Beast is slightly more female skewed, but there's a lot in there for boys, and then Aladdin's just slightly more boy skewed, but there's a lot in there for girls too. And because Jasmine's obviously a very popular Disney princess, even though this is a lot of boys like this movie.
Yeah, well, I probably would say Jasmine's probably, if I had to pick my favorite Disney princess, I would definitely say it's Jasmine.
Oh yeah,
probably Jasmine, and then probably second. I'm pretty close. It's like Mulan or Pocahontas. It's
Esmeralda.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Is she? Did they put her in the? Did they put the gypsy as princess? I don't know.
I know that princess. I kind of call any of them, if you're in the Disney movie, you're a princess. But it's weird because it's like a lot of times you only see like 5 of them ever appear on like merchandise. I feel like it sounds weird, but Jasmine a lot of times is like she's the token dark skinned girl that's always chosen.
Yeah, until Princess and the Frog, they were bad about that. They were bad about that. It's 2 things real quick. Well, one, have you seen Ralph Breaks the Internet?
The second one, is that what it is?
Yeah, the Ralph Breaks the Internet, the second Wreck-It Ralph.
I didn't, because I remember that first one was such a letdown to me. Like, I thought I was going to love that movie. I literally thought I was going to love that movie. Like, going into it, like, oh, it's going to be fucking amazing. It's going to be great. And, like, the first, 15 or 20 minutes, I remember, like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then I just felt that movie just crashed so hard. And I remember sitting there for, the next, hour, arms crossed, like, what the hell just happened here? Like, it hit me like a gut punch. And it really messed me up. I haven't watched this. I've kind of felt like I should go back just maybe to give it a second try now that I know what it's kind of all about. But man, I felt like I was so gut punched in that movie. Like, I will say one of the worst cinema experiences I probably ever had was Wreck-It Ralph. It's so bizarre to say that, but
wow.
Yeah, it really, I think the reason why is my expectations were so high. Like I thought I was going to love the living daylights out of it. I thought that was going to be my movie.
I love that one, but it's not one of my favorites, but I do love it. But I bring it up because in the sequel, there's a really funny Disney princess scene, and they're all hanging out together and interacting with each other, and none of them can understand. I can't remember her name. The one from Brave, I can't remember her name. None of them can understand her because she's super Scottish or whatever. And that whole scene, the way they kind of poke fun and how meta they are with the Disney princesses is really, really fun. But that's the one time you see them all together.
And, interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really funny. But yeah, I don't know. Jasmine's probably my favorite one too.
Yeah.
And Jafar's a good villain. Iago with Gilbert Gottfried.
It sounds weird. When I was a kid too, Jafar was one of my favorite characters. Like I really gravitated towards the villains at a very, very young age. I don't know what that says. That's like one of those ones if a psychologist sits you down, that might be weird, because I also really like Magneto a lot. So
I do too, actually.
Yeah. So
as I said, he might be my favorite villain. Period.
He's so good, and it was like him and Jafar, because I think that's the same time period. X-Men the animated series, Aladdin, and I both thought both those characters were amazing. Like as much as I like Aladdin, I also at the same time wanted to be Jafar by far.
One quick thing about Aladdin too is something that Disney does better in this movie, I think, they do any other Disney movie, and it sounds like such a weird thing to say, but night just nighttime. The contrasted colors, like the sunset, the nighttime, like the I Could Show You the World stuff, like that's all, or A Whole New World, that's all nighttime. The lion, when they go into the cave.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie opens at 9, I'm pretty sure. But when they go like that, that's beautiful animation. And even in the cave, you know, with the luminescent genie and stuff, that they do that really, really well in Aladdin. It's just something I've always kind of noticed. But yeah, it's like the thing of animated movies.
Yeah, and, you know, I feel like that's like a good time period because you come from like, it's one of those ones that's like that movie puts the Middle East in like a good light. I know it's like an old timey story, but like, you know what I mean? You don't think about that too much that like, oh, America's going to really make this really, you know, classic Middle Eastern story. But that's like one of those ones where it's like, no, that they went to it and they go hard and everybody loves it.
Yeah, and they do have the disclaimer before you watch it now on Disney Plus.
Oh, well, they have that like on they have that like on Lady and the Tramp. They're like, you know.
Yeah, well, I think they only have it on Aladdin. I think the only real problem they have with it is the opening scene.
Oh, yeah.
With like when it's also Robin Williams.
Yeah, there's like one line he says in there that I think that for some reason, I almost want to say they might have tried to cut that out of like certain newer Blu-rays or something like that. You know?
Yeah, I think that's the only problem they have with it though, because it's not that bad. Like I don't like what they cut out of Peter Pan, but I do also get it. Like when they not cut out, but like they're upset about. But at the same time, I do. But the Aladdin one kind of shocked me at first when they had the disclaimer. I was like, okay, well, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I noticed on Disney, it's like there's almost a disclaimer. I'm surprised there's not a disclaimer on Lilo and Stitch, to tell you the truth. You know what I mean? Like every one of those movies, like if you look hard enough, there's probably something super offensive to somebody.
Well, you know, Lilo and Stitch, they had to reanimate it because that I think I told you about this recently. That scene at the end where they're flying through the canyon with the airplane and stuff, if you watch it in this context, you're like, this seems kind of off. Something seems weird about it. Like contextually, like why are they? It's because it was originally through a city and they were flying the plane between buildings, and this came out right after 9/11. Oh. And I think at one point, I don't think it hits a building, but I think the plane would go between two of them, two like towers, and they're like, yeah, we're changing that shit. So they had to reanimate that.
And let's be honest, Stitch is pretty much like the universe's biggest terrorist.
Like, yeah, Stitch is if Jar Jar was done right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Stitch is fun.
Yeah, that is. I just actually watched that not too long, like literally like a week and a half ago or something like that. But yeah, Aladdin's one of those ones. Like I got everything about that to me. It hits me on all the levels. It hits me on nostalgic levels. I love the music. The animation's top notch. I just love that classic story, you know. And then just all the characters and everything like that. Like, and I also I even like the sequels. Return of Jafar is kind of okay, but that third one is extremely good. Like.
It was the king of when they had, because in the 90s they had all those straight to VHS sequels. They can capitalize on them. They were all ass, except for the Aladdin ones were pretty decent.
Yeah. Return of Jafar, it's good, but it's not like amazing. But that third one, that's the kind of like the underrated one because nobody ever thinks about that one. That one's I almost even thought about putting that on the list. That's how much I like that one. That one's really good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was the only ones that really held up. I remember watching some of the other ones and being like, what the fuck is that shit? You know, the Lion King ones and all that stuff. But yeah, anyway, so where are we at? So that was my 4.
So you're now back on whatever the heck your 3 is.
Okay, because we're having so much overlap. I don't think we'll have overlap here. I'll be shocked if we do. If we do, then it means it's one of your top 2, and I'd be floored if this is one of your top 2. So I almost put this number 1, but I had to scale myself back and really like, Wesley, what's your favorite stuff? But number 3, I got Little Mermaid.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's the music. It's the calypso vibe, all that stuff. I love it. I vibe with that music really hard.
That one there is technically my original VHS movie I ever owned. Was Little Mermaid.
I saw it in kindergarten at school.
Yeah, so it's one of those ones like that one's always been kind of a big deal, classic, nostalgic one for me. I can always kind of go back to it.
Yeah, sorry, I had to. Ice was in my mouth. I was like, I have to chew this now.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I remember seeing it in elementary school, and I thought I went and saw this in the theaters. I don't think I did. Now I look back at it, I don't think I did. I saw it first time in elementary school, and on VHS. We had one of the TVs mounted on the wall, and thought, man, this is awesome, and it's what kicks off the Disney Renaissance. Cinematically, because what doesn't get enough credit for the Disney Renaissance, like kind of reinvigorating everything, is not just Little Mermaid in the tail end of '89. Like, so you're going into the '90s on a new, it's a whole new world. But also those animated shows, the DuckTales, the Chip and Dale, the Tailspin in the early '90s, that helped. That was a big part of that stuff too. That doesn't get talked about enough. Like that really, now you're getting Disney into the home, but Little Mermaid was what, really kicked it off, because Oliver and Company was good. I like Oliver and Company, but it was the last movie before the Renaissance. The critics didn't care for it that much, didn't make a lot of money. Then you go back
Black Cauldron.
Yeah, Black Cauldron, which, I like and you like, but it almost
I like that one. It's got one kind of thing I don't like. There's that weird dog creature that's like the Jar Jar Binks of that movie. Yeah. Kind of screws him over multiple times. And I remember the first time I saw it, like right when it died, I'm like, thank Christ that thing finally died. And then they bring it back to life. It's like, no, that guy's been screwing him over the whole time. He's just been an ass. Yeah. Don't bring it back to life. Let kids know that, sometimes you just gotta like take something out.
Yeah, it's I like it. Okay, it's not, definitely not as bad as people made it out to be. I think the real bummer in the '80s for them was The Great Mouse Detective, because it went up against Fievel, which was a Don Bluth movie, and Don Bluth's mouse beat their mouse. Yep, you don't beat Disney's mouse, like you just don't do it. And he did, and that was kind of like, I think, the low point really for Disney animation, and. Little Mermaid's like A New Hope. Like it really, really sets the course right. The music is back on track. I think Oliver and Company deserves some of that credit too with the music. But they really hit it out of the park with Little Mermaid. It's my favorite songs are in that one. Kiss the Girl is really, really good, and all that stuff. Under the Sea is really, really good, even though there's a lot of weird innuendo in there. Yeah, that movie's just so fun. I like the animation. It doesn't look as good as the movies that come after. It still has that kind of like tinge, like dirty '80s look a little bit. But man, it's fun. I like Flounder. I like Sebastian. And it starts that new trend of like the marketing for Disney in the '90s. The longevity of those movies. You could throw Little Mermaid or fucking Genie or Simba or Beauty and the Beast, any of those big movies in the '90s, you could throw them on a lunchbox or a plushie or something, and they'll sell the shit out of it still 30 plus years later. So, and Little Mermaid started that. You can still sell Little Mermaid shit. And I'm not talking about the live action one. I'm talking about old school, that one. You can still sell that shit today, and it does well.
Well, for example, if you put an Oliver and Company toys out right now, like that's only going to hit there's only a certain target audience. And they're probably going to be people in their 30s. They're like, hey, this is pretty cool. I had one of these when I was a kid. That's what's going to happen. Late 30s. Yeah, it's the forgotten one, Oliver, because it did hit right before the Renaissance, but you could see that was the thing with Oliver and Company. You see where they're getting back on track. They got the music figured out. And the fact they're able to get some bigger names and stuff in there, like, okay, we're restoring our credibility here. But yeah, Little Mermaid is my number 3. Yeah, and I'm just going to say about Black Cauldron real quickly. I think the main reason that throws people off more than anything else is not that the movie's like bad or anything like that. I just think that like the target Disney audience, that movie is just like too different. It's too fantasy for them. You know what I mean? Because that's made for like the people that would like Lord of the Rings, and they'd like Fire and Ice, and they would like
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth, like that. That's who they're going for with that Black Cauldron movie. And I think just the traditional Disney audience, I almost would say the conservative sort of Disney like family thing was like, whoa, what is this hoodlum? We don't need none of the satanic panic stuff going on in our Disney stuff here. Like, I think that's what really kind of happened. Like, well, you got Ozzy Osbourne. He's like, no, he's not in there. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure he was in there. Looks like some filth he would be in. So I think that's kind of what it is. It's like, and that's like why that movie, like, I feel if anybody kind of gives it, like, if they say anything kind of bad about it, I'm like, I bet you didn't watch it. That's all I have to sort of say, because it is
dark fantasy.
Yeah, it's cool and it's different, and as I said, I like everything about it except for that one little character. But it doesn't fit the Disney brand, I guess. It would have been better probably at some other studio. Like, it would have been a good Fox one. I think Fox could have pulled it off.
I mean, it feels Don Bluethy too. I mean, to an extent, I could see that happening, but yeah, it is very different for Disney. But yeah, Black Cauldron gets too much hate. I think the ones that get a little too much credit are like this generation. This is my least favorite generation.
The 660 stuff. Yeah. You know why that is, because that's the total baby boomer like generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like some of that stuff too. Yeah, but some of it's just like Yeah, I like it all too. But I mean, like. Well, I take that back. There might be one that's it's a next it's probably the next one up, but yeah, it's the weird generation. But go ahead with your number 2.
Okay, so we finally get to where I get to pick one now, and we don't just double up on them. But my number 2 is a little bit of an oddball one comparatively to this other stuff, but I think it still fits in that same category. But it's a Goofy movie.
Oh, haven't watched it in years.
Oh God, this is one of those ones that I throw on all the time. Like this, and I like the sequel too. The sequel's still pretty strong. Mm-hmm. But a Goofy movie is almost one of the best ways. If you want to say like, hey, you show kids like, you want to know what it was like growing up in the 90s? This movie right here will tell you what that experience was. And it's like 100%. I mean, it's so 100% like growing up in the 90s, you got a Pauly Shore character in there.
It is the most 90s. It's the most contemporary 90s Disney movie animated by far. It's not even close, because everything else is set in the either the past, or they're like or they're talking animals or something, but this was contemporary, and it was fun, and that's why I loved it too. I loved that one a lot. It didn't make my list, but I thought about putting it on there.
Yeah, well, and it's got great music in it, like amazing song. Like between like having musical stuff and then just like straight up, they got oh God, what's his name? He's kind of like a Michael Jackson knockoff. That's not a bad thing though. But God, trying to blank on that dude's name. But the songs he has for like I'm trying to, not Power Glove, but Power
Line.
Powerline, yeah, that stuff's so good. Just the musical stuff's great, and it's just cool. Because like perfect example is that this was one of those like probably a little bit of the later generation of like the Saturday morning cartoon show ones. As you had Goof Troop and stuff, and Max was about here's Goofy, a single father. He's got his like 10-year-old boy that he's got to raise, and then he's got his like kind of like sort of nemesis guy that lives next door with PJ, his son, and like they got to kind of make it kind of work and what happens and whatnot. And the cool thing about a Goofy movie is like, okay, now Max is a teenager, and it gives us sort of father-son like 90s bonding of like, we're gonna go off on a good old road trip and take the boy out and everything like that to explore this. And of course Max is being like, it's like, I just want to hang out with my friends, and I just met this new girl and Powerline's playing dad. Yeah. But it works. It's like one of those ones like that almost sounds like that could go in a very bad direction, but in a Goofy movie it just works fantastic.
That movie's so good, and the thing about that one is it's so weird that they chose to do it. Yeah, like at that time with what's going on, and they're knocking it out of the park with all these like classic fairy tale kind of things, or Shakespearean, because Lion King's kind of Shakespearean, and all these different things. And then there's like, hey, let's do a movie for Goofy. Not Mickey, not Donald Duck. Let's do give him a cinematic feature, like right in the middle of the Renaissance, and it just it worked. I mean, I was in Target not too long ago, saw a Powerline shirt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'd almost buy that if I saw one of those.
Wasn't in my size, or I would have bought it.
Oh God, but God, there's just so much great, and I love all the characters. I love Pete. I think Pete's hilarious. How he's just always making fun of stuff, and then you got PJ. Like, oh man, Max, your dad's gonna come over and beat us all if you don't get it going. There's so much fun there, and they just all the places they stop and whatnot. It's very like Americana, because it's literally single father National Lampoon's Vacation Disney style.
Brilliant. And it's just the fact that they chose to do it with Goofy. They could have done anything. They could have made a live action Jonathan Taylor Thomas movie or something, but they chose to do what they did, and it's just man, it's that one has always fascinated me, that it slipped through the cracks, and they were they allotted resources to make it. Yeah. When they're just they didn't need it, but they're just this is fun. It must have been a hell of a pitch, is what I think.
Yeah, well, I think that movie came out kind of at the right time, because I think that was that point where they're the money was just rolling in. They're I think they would just take any idea and say, go for it. That was, if that movie would have taken its sweet time to come out, it might have been a hard sell, but I think right then and that, because I think it's 97, the money's just coming in like gangbusters. Every single movie's a hit, and the movies that sometimes you think of being a lesser one, at the time, it's like The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That movie was still a humongous hit at the time. In hindsight, when you compare them with all the other ones, it doesn't seem as big, but she was just as ginormous when that came out. Then, Sam Pocahontas, that thing was humongous, all that kind of stuff like that. I think it's only once you start having 20 movies to kind of compare it to, and you have to make a list, sometimes some of those ones fall on a little bit more of the wayside. But yeah, Goofy movie to me is just, it's alternative, but it's 90s as all can be. It's nostalgic, just everything about it. Just, it takes me back each time I watch it.
I need to rewatch that one soon. I'm gonna show that to the kids soon, because I think they'll like it. But yeah, I'm glad you put that on the list, because it's such a unique one that we grew up with. And yeah, I need to watch that soon. But so my number 2, this will not shock you at all. Very boy centric. Kind of tail end of the Renaissance, tail end of Disney animation. We've already mentioned it. Motherfucking Tarzan. Motherfucking, and you know why? It's Phil Collins.
Yeah, Phil
Collins. It's just, he's like, hey, just come in and do a few songs for us, like Elton did. Come and do a few songs for us, like Billy Joel did. And he just I got it. And he just comes in there and just goes, I wanna know. All the songs are so good, but I love the colors, the energy of it. Just the animation is really, really good. It's just a fun movie. I like the side characters. None of them really annoy me too much. The elephant kind of bothers me sometimes. But that's one I've watched a lot lately, so it's more fresh in my mind, because my kids do like that one. And it really, is it as good as Little Mermaid? No. Is it as good as the other ones I've had on the list? Probably not. But Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Enough said.
I'm going to say that was one of those movies that took me a moment to kind of get behind. And I think it's just only because I watched old Tarzan movies growing up. So to me, it felt kind of like a half-assed Tarzan movie when I first saw it. I'm like, there's much better. They have 50 other Tarzan movies that are much better than this. So I when as a kid, I kind of had a little bit more that angst about it, but as time came on and I kind of rewatched it, I did go, I do enjoy it. It's not Graystroke, Tarzan or anything like that, but it's still good, and it's still something different, and I can almost give him credit for that. I actually, now you mention it, I bought a 3-disc version that I found somewhere. It was $3 for a super special edition Tarzan one. I'm like, hell yeah, because a lot of those Disney ones, they used to make some great special editions of a lot of those movies where not only you get the movie, but you get an hour of behind the scenes plus really cool making of. And so I feel that was one of those ones I bought it. You have yet to watch it like usual, but I bet you it's gonna have some sweet special features for that one.
Oh yeah, I would like to watch that. That to me, that was the last great traditionally animated Disney movie. Like, I like some of the other ones that come after that. I like parts of Lilo and Stitch. I think Princess and the Frog is really, really damn good.
Yeah, that's super good.
Yeah, some of the other ones that are in there, they don't really hit that level. But Tarzan and Mulan are, to me, the end of the Renaissance.
I was gonna say Mulan was my kind of like final frontier of like Disney, like pretty much after Mulan, because that was like the last one I remember like really loving, and then it's just I almost just fell out by that point. Like I was on to watching different cartoons and live action movies and things like that. So like everything kind of past Mulan, I almost ended up watching kind of like later.
Well, I think a lot of people did, because I think Disney was kind of lost, because that was the double-edged sword of Pixar. It's like, okay, well, the studio over here is amazing. They've revolutionized animation. They've taken us to a place where we can do all these new things, but we're just kind of cannibalizing ourselves. And now we're making, we got to figure out how to make that type of animation going forward. And they eventually did. They do Tangled and Frozen and Moana and all these movies. I would say right now, over the past 10 years, Disney overall, there's some exceptions, but overall Disney's kind of usurped Pixar, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tarzan and Mulan are the last two Renaissance movies, in my opinion, and Mulan's damn good too.
Yeah, Mulan. That was in my bottom when I was picking which one. Mulan was one of my choices. It was like Atlantis, Oliver, Mulan, even Snow White. Those are the four I was kind of rotating, because Mulan, I like that one quite a bit too. It's just one of the ones that. It's another one. Great story. It has because I was into Chinese kung fu martial arts type stuff, so it gives me that sort of vibe, and the songs are great in that one too. I mean, I always think of the Be a Man song. That's what I do every morning when I take a cold shower. I just think of that song. Yeah, the songs in Mulan are really good. Songs in Mulan are better even than Tarzan. They're very Disney. Well, because Tarzan's music's that's the one that's different, because they don't really have, other than like the Rosie O'Donnell song, that it's not a musical as much. It's got background music.
Yeah,
that's
music,
the difference. Yeah.
It's needle drops, and I agree with you on that. And that is one kind of flaw to it, but it's Phil fucking Collins, so it gets a pass from me. But
I don't think that's necessarily a flaw. I just think it's just a different storytelling style.
Yeah, and I think they kind of did that back in the '60s and stuff. There was some where there was music, but they weren't really singing it, and I don't know. But so I already know what your number one is, but I want to hear you talk about it. So go ahead and give us your number one.
So my number one is the Disney movie that I've seen on many a list that gets voted the worst Disney movie of all time.
Can't believe it.
I can't believe it either, because this is, to me, is my all-time favorite one, and it probably has another thing to do that this character is one of my all-time favorite. I literally will buy any movie this character's in, any video game, any story. I got old books, all kinds of stuff. But as the Disney's Robin Hood, Little John running through the forest,
golly, what a day.
Oh gosh, that movie to me is like one of those ones. I remember my cousin showed it to me when we were like wee young kids, and it was one of those ones where I was like, oh, this movie is so good. Like, and it's just like, I love the characters. I like the fact, like, I know some people, they make this up like the bad, like, oh, Baloo just like is like a returning character. I'm like, it's like he's an actor. It doesn't bother me that he comes in and plays Little John. I think that's cool, Yeah. And
I agree.
It tells the classic Robin Hood story that is just one of my favorites. It's got the Sheriff of Nottingham and all the great old voice actors in it.
I agree. I don't understand. I didn't put it on my list just because I knew it was going to be on yours, but I like it too. I've always had an affinity for it. Never understood why it's down there at the bottom. Like, you want to throw Fox and the Hound under the dirt, Bambi, some of those. Like, okay, you can shit on those all you want, but Robin Hood, like, I just never understood why it should. It is odd. It is an odd one.
It's different, yeah. Well, because it's the very first non-Walt Disney movie, so I think that's what kind of gives it sort of like a, the black flag in a sense that puts it under the radar. I think that's probably one of the big ones. Is I bet you a lot of purists at the moment they just turn their back on that movie instantaneously, So it sort of took like a younger generation to kind of go, no, this one's a really cool one. But yeah, I've seen it before on many a list where like back in the day, it's like, God, that's the worst one. Are you kidding me? I'm like, that's literally always been kind of my go-to favorite. I love Robin Hood, and that movie kind of like there's a handful of those Disney movies. I remember for the longest time, it's like they never gave that movie like a good version. They had like the half-ass DVD. The movie was in full screen, not even widescreen, no special features, no bells and whistles. There was a handful of them. Like Fox and the Hound was like that for a while. I think by this point they have given some more of them better ones, but like it used to be one of those ones that like Disney even just kind of shoved that one in the corner.
They did. I've never felt like they were proud of it, and it is odd. It has an odd cadence and odd flow to it. It is it's a weird time anyway in pop culture. It's just people. It's kind of weird, but it's good, and I like the characters in it. I think it's very creative. I think it's actually pretty well animated too. It's just it is missing something that's quintessentially Disney. I can't really put my finger on it, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But it does feel off, but not in a bad way necessarily.
I think with a lot of those 70s, because the 70s movies is kind of like same with the 80s, but the 70s is definitely probably the generation that's looked upon like the least. I think is what happened at that time period is everybody kind of said, you know what, since Walt's not here just like looming over us anymore, let's try some experimental stuff. And I think that's what all those movies were. That's why Aristocrat Cats is a little bit different. That's why Great Mouse Egg, I think that's 81. I know the first Rescuers is I think like 70 or 77 or 78. So like I think a lot of those movies are kind of a little bit more experimental in that 70s section. And for me, I'm very nostalgic for a lot of that 70s Disney stuff. I think just because like at that time period, I just remember that was a lot of those VHSs laying around were a lot of the 70s ones, and it didn't seem like anybody questioned them at that time period.
Yeah, it's just it has. You know what it reminds me of? This is such a weird comparison. What is it, Arlo Guthrie, the Alice's What Restaurant? Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard that, like at Thanksgiving time? Come on in. It's the whole story, and he's just telling me and the boys went up to Alice's restaurant. It has a folk song element, and the whole thing, not just because of the music in it, it just has that type of cadence to it. I like it. I never ever understood why it shit on so much. It's totally unfair.
No, and it's a good retelling of Robin Hood's story. Like it captures, like you go watch any of the other Robin Hood movies. It's like it captures pretty much 90% of all the stuff in there. You know, in a shorter version, of course, because the movie's only like 80 minutes long. But like it's there, and it has the whole like classic tale. And I think that like that's really what set me off on my I have a big Robin Hood obsession. So it's like one of those ones like. I'll watch any movie, play any game, grab the books, and so on like that. And I think it all started with that film right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is it my favorite Robin Hood film? Yeah. I think that's my favorite Robin Hood film, man. We're talking about Men in Tights. The one that disappointed me was that Russell Crowe one. I was so fucking excited for that movie.
Yeah, I remember being a little bit more pumped for that, too. I like, don't get me wrong, I like the Kevin Costner one, though it's, Kevin Costner doing the American Robin Hood, but that's okay. It's great. It's still a good movie. I mean, I'll say this, my favorite Robin Hood movie is actually the Errol Flynn one. That's kind of hard,
which is fair.
I love the living daylights out of that thing, but yeah, and also the other one's really good too. It's right beforehand. There's that Disney live action one that came out in the 50s, like 55. I think it's like one of the Disney Sunday movies or whatever. But that one's a good Robin Hood too.
I've never seen that one. I've seen it on Disney. I think
it's called Story of Robin Hood. It's on Disney Plus. I remember that it was a hard movie to get for. It was like a lot of those 50s movies, but before Disney Plus, a lot of those movies were like you just couldn't find them easily. And if you did, the DVDs were like $30 used. Like not god awful expensive, but just way more than you'd think they should be.
Yeah, there's still some weird stuff that's missing off there. Like last I checked, Rocket Man's not on there.
Oh, really?
Disney, get your shit together. Fucking Rocket Man's one of my favorite Disney movies. Period.
Holy
Period.
crap.
Oh,
I almost bought that movie the other day. I saw it. So I think it was like the DVD. I'm like, I don't have that movie on DVD. I should buy this.
Yeah, I'll buy that next time I see it. That movie was so fun. God, I love that movie.
I saw that in cinemas and it was amazing.
Did you? Oh man, yeah. Well, I'll give you my number one, and it's very cliche, but goddamn, it's so good. Lion King.
Yep.
It's the music is good. Not only is the musical numbers good, all of them bangers, but then you got the Hans Zimmer score in there on top of it. So they went double, like on the music, they just doubled up. It was too good. I mean, you had with the songs and the score, amazing. Scar, awesome villain.
Yep.
Story of Simba's great. The side characters, I would say.
Timon and Pumbaa. That's how I try to live my life.
Yeah, no shit. Yep, I think they're the best side characters, and there's a lot of really good side characters in Disney movies. Timon and Pumbaa to me are, unless you consider Genie a side character, which I kind of don't. I kind of,
Yeah, he's more like the buddy cop of a character in a sense. He's there like the whole way practically.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, if you do consider him a side character, then it's Genie. But if not, then it's Timon and Pumbaa. Like to me, they're side characters, and they're great. The cast. I mean, the hyenas. With Whoopi Goldberg and all that, they're great. Yeah, hilarious. Yeah, yeah, and they always kind of reminded me of Ed, and Eddie somehow. I don't really know
because
how.
I think one's named Ed, and then he acts kind of like Ed on Ed and Eddie.
Yeah, I think so. It's always, but the whole "Be Prepared" song too, with the green and just the contrast. It's like very old school Disney, but a new then look to it. It just. I don't know, but it obviously, as then as I become a dad, and it's just like, oh God, I can't watch this with my kids. I started putting that on for my son one day. Like, my oldest is really attached to me, and he's like, the dad dies. Like, okay, you can't watch this movie. You're not ready for this shit yet. Like, best story, best ending. Fucking Lion King rocks. And the video games rock too.
Yeah, the video games, they're tough as hell, but like they're fun. But yeah, no, that one's the one that I thought about putting that one on my list too, because that one is a big deal. I saw that in cinemas. That was the very first. That soundtrack was the very first CD I ever got.
Really?
Yeah. So before then it was only cassettes. Then I got that was like a CD. And yeah, there's a lot of nostalgia with that one, and just seeing that movie in this, I can still visually picture that like 1994 in the cinemas, like
oh my God,
like almost like it wasn't that long ago. Like that's how much it stood out to me.
Well, that was such a good ass movie year. I mean, such a good movie year, and that was I think it was the highest grossing movie of that year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And I remember watching it again in Miss Howe's class in 4th grade, and just being so, like, I fell in love with it again. But that opening, like that whole opening is like chills. I watched it the other day, and I'm just like, oh, this is so fucking good. It's like it really feels to me. It feels like Disney. It's Michael Jordan Game 6 of the NBA Finals versus the Jazz. That's what it is. It's just like this is their peak to me. Mm-hmm. Everything they do after that, they still do some really good shit. But to me, that was their height was that movie, and they have not been able to get there again. Like close, but not there.
No, that's totally true. That movie does just like go the distance farther than any of the other ones. I mean, we said how Beauty and the Beast is almost so like you pass that one if someone's never seen any of them in your entire life. Hell, yeah. Lion King might be actually the one that tops that almost slightly more in a weird way. It's just different. Depends if they like. Do you like animals or do you like humans more? You got to make that decision before you pass it to them. Yeah,
I like. I think the reason Lion King, I say that about it because it was such a huge hit. And they made all the right decisions. Beauty and the Beast does some things in there that are just still to this day, like the ballroom scene in Beauty and the Beast. I watched that, and it's kind of like watching the T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park. Like, you're so far ahead of your fucking time right now. Like that hint to CG is done so right. Yeah, and like just the contrast of the colors and stuff. It's just like. I think from an artistic standpoint, that might have been their peak. But just as far as you look at Lion King, I can't make it number. If you look at all the disciplines of animated movie, the art style, the animation, the music, everything I can't say it's number one in anything, except for maybe the villain. But it's top three in all of them. It's like, it does all the things very, very well, and it's really, really, really damn good.
Yeah, no, that's one of those ones that it was damn close to being on my list. Has a lot of nostalgic memories, and about as dialed in as can be, and plus, everything about it is firing on all cylinders. Like there's like not a negative you can even think in that movie. There's not like a dull point in the movie. There's not a bad character. Nobody's annoying. You know what I mean?
Well, and this is where we can, trail off for just a second, if we can. It makes me think of these live action remakes, and it's just like, God, that one I hated so much because, first of all, Lion King's kind of abstract. Like if you look at the "Just Can't Wait to Be King" scene. And there is very abstract, like he's jumping on that, giraffes' heads, and like there's
colorful,
weird art styles behind it. And then you're gonna do Lion King, make it look like National Geographic, and it's just like that's not what you can't. It doesn't translate the same way. Like if you're gonna make a whole different movie.
Yeah, and, well, that's the thing that bothers me so much about that too is that they call it live action. It's like it's not live action. It's all CG. It's more. It's just as cartoon as the other one. You can't call that live action. Live action means you have to have real lions. And if you can't get real lions to sing these songs, then I'm not in.
It's just none of those bastardizations. Like my thing is, if you're going to remake these movies, you're already kind of taking a shit on the animators who did the old ones anyway. So just make something different. Do different songs. Don't even do the songs. Make that be the different aspect of it. It's like there's no music. Just
Yeah, well, it's like the thing is, it's like I always felt like that Maleficent one was kind of the better way because it's like, okay, there's like an alternative way that you can tie in. That made total sense, but like a lot of these other ones, they're just cash grabs, and they're like bad cash grabs. I mean, the movies don't.
But they work.
Good. Oh yeah, they work because this is the thing about it. It's that one that there's the Disney loyalist that will show up no matter what. It can be the most hog crap, whatever. They'll still be there, with $15 in hand, no matter what it is. But then there's always the people that go, I just kind of wonder, and that's what they're getting a lot of the money from. And like I kind of get to the point like I won't generally go see a Disney movie in theaters because I just don't want that money. I would rather just be like, that's one of the few times like, no. If you truly want to see it, just take it from somewhere. Like that's one of you don't support that. I know that that's like cutting into people's jobs, and like I get that, but like it's a bad cause. It's one of those ones like it's like. I don't know. It's like, especially because I remember seeing a few of those ones like in theaters. Like I saw like the Beauty and the Beast one, and other than one great line in that live action or whatever you want to, partially live action one, which there's only one part I love. There's a part where like Gaston was starting to have like a panic attack or something like that, and the small guy Lufo or whatever, he's all like, think of the war, think of the murders, think of all that. He's like, oh yeah. He gets like a smile on his face. I was laughing really fucking hard in the theaters then. And like the war is what cheers him back up. But other than that, there's like that one kind of was whatever. I will say, ironically, if I had the Aladdin one, I actually liked more than I would have thought. I felt like that I put a little bit more effort into. And I mean, like even Will Smith, I'm like, I like Will Smith, so maybe that wins me over a little bit more than maybe a normal person would, but.
Touch on that real quick. I actually, one of the first episodes of Via VHS back in the day was when they announced that movie, and me and Beebs and Derek were talking about that, and they're like, who are they going to get to be Aladdin? I mean, a genie. And I was like, well, the only person I think that could do it is Will Smith. He's not nearly as funny as Robin Williams, but he has enough charisma to pull it off. And he did pretty well. I mean, I think he actually could have done better, if they had changed the look a little bit. The look was kind of weird, but I thought he did a pretty good job. I will say that was of the ones I've seen, which I haven't seen the last I haven't seen Little Mermaid. I haven't seen a few of them.
I pretty much stopped. That was I think the Mulan one was the one I totally stopped after, because that one was god awful. Like it was almost like I have a Chinese Mulan sitting over here that's been in my DVD stack for a while. That I'm like, that probably is. I felt like, because I think it came out around the same time. I think China's like, fuck this shit. We'll show you real Mulan. Here's a kung fu epic right here. Like
that's pretty good. I haven't seen that Mulan either. I've heard it was decent, but
it was one of those ones, like, I thought it, because the trailer looked good, and I thought, like, oh, they're putting some money in this, and Mulan was a perfect transition for, like, it would work great for like that, but they gave it that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like, floaty, like, crap, and it was just
like they did with Star Wars recently.
God, it was just not. It was like one of those ones where it's just like, no, I've just learned those ones, like, why it's like the Disney anime movies are perfect. It's like, why would you try to attempt to remake perfect?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not the same thing. It's a cash grab, more or less. What maybe now is a cash grab for specifically us. They're doing a lot of these '90s ones. I'm not fucking with it. The Jungle Book one was decent. The Jungle Book one was,
I didn't see that one.
That one was pretty fun. That one was okay. But last thing before we go, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, so you might not have an answer for this. We do try to keep things pretty positive, but I'm just curious your answer. Do you have a least favorite Disney movie, like the one that is out of all those animated ones, and we're going back to just the straight up animated ones? Because I'll tell you mine real quick while you're thinking. Mine's Fox and the Hound. Fuck that movie. I was like, that made me so sad. And I was just like, this is pointless. This is just so, like, I don't want Chinatown, okay, when I'm watching a kid's movie. You leave that shit to the 70s. Like, leave that shit back in the day. I don't need that. Fox and the Hound, watched it one time. We'll never, ever watch it again. Saturn Bambi. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, well, Fox and the Hound is totally, because I think that movie's like 82, so it totally carries that, like, that New Hollywood, like, it's tough out there, kids, get fucking used to it. Just because you think he's your best fucking friend, he's gonna fuck you over, if you know what I mean. It sounds weird, like that one, because I've watched that one a few more times in, like, recent years, and it's weird because sometimes, like weird tragic shit like that, like, the older I get, I go, I understand that. You know what? That is sometimes how life is, and you just have to get used to it. It's good. It's almost the old, like, it's like the old Yeller kind of, like, experience in life. You need to become a man today, so get used to it. You're gonna have to kill your own dog here. There's no coming back for him. He's gonna. You loved him, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Land Before Time, not Disney movie. It's sad as shit.
Yes, that one comes out of left field too. That it got that when we did the podcast on that last time. Oh, that hit me hard because I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch that one again. But
God, yeah, it got me. Like, it was only like 2 years ago or whatever the hell it was we did that, and I was like, oh, this part.
Well, when that was, my mom showed me that movie, and when I was little, and I bawled my eyes out, like, and she's like, okay, don't worry, I'll never let you watch that again. I'm like, no, rewind it. She's like, what? I was like, I want to watch it again. And I was like, I don't know why I tortured myself with that movie, but I still one of my favorite animated movies, period.
Oh yeah.
But my God, that movie's sad. But Fox and the Hound is just pointless. Like, just why even make the movie? Like, just find another way to slip that in as like a side point in a story. Don't make the whole movie. Just fuck that movie. That's my least favorite one.
Oh yeah, God, I've been trying to think here, and I have a hard time just thinking of what might be my least favorite one realistically. You know what's one that I'll say that's actually, this sounds kind of weird, but it was one that I thought was really good when I was a kid, but when I went back to rewatch it, I feel like it's kind of a half-assed one, and I don't think it's god-awful or bad or anything like that. I just don't think it's just really as good as I remember, and that's Sword in the Stone. Because I thought that was a great movie when I was a kid, and I watched it probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was doing a little bit of, went back and watched some of them, and I was like, it's kind of okay, I feel like it should just be way better than it is. It's a Merlin story, and it's King Arthur. Like, why would this not be like amazing? And it's just kind of I don't know. It's not Then there's I feel like that's one of those ones, just nothing too special.
Yeah, there's some other ones in there like Aristocats and Sword in the Stone for me as well. It's just kind of like, it's just that weird middle era. Like the Lady and the Tramp is like the last good one for a while because I like Lady.
Yeah.
I love Lady and the Tramp.
I like that one a lot. I rewatched that one just a couple years ago, and that one's when the animation's like firing on all cylinders too. Like that was good.
Yeah, Lady and the Tramp is really, really good, and it's the last, I think, great one for a while when that one comes out. But that classic golden age. We didn't even like Pinocchio, Cinderella.
Yeah, as I said, Snow White was almost on my list, and I know that one's kind of like I feel like that one's kind of like a big one to grab, but that is one of those ones that that one hits out of the park just instantaneously. Yeah, Peter Pan. I got a little bit of nostalgia for too.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it
my
really
favorite
ties
Disney
into
ride.
it ties into Hook for me. It's like just a double whammy of those seeing those about the same time.
That I will say that I would say if it wasn't for Hook, Peter Pan would actually been way higher on my list. But I love Hook so much.
Yeah,
and I'm
like
such a Hook apologist. Oh my god. I will say my kids like Peter Pan a lot, and that's my favorite ride at Disney. Mm-hmm. Even when they've added all the new stuff, I love flying over London at Disney World in the pirate ship. That's like something about that. I've always, even as a little kid, just like, man, this is my favorite fucking ride. I've always loved it.
And one of my favorite rides at Disneyland was always the Song of the South one, but I don't think they got rid of that.
It's Princess and the Frog now.
Yeah. They took out the Song of the South like stuff there.
Well, that was obviously my favorite while it was there. And I'll like Princess and the Frog one too. Mm-hmm. I just, man, I have such a hard time with the Song of the South thing. Like, I get it, but also like I don't at the same time. Like, it is a problematic thing, but to me, you can handle it just like you handle Aladdin or Peter Pan and just have a disclaimer and let people watch it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Walt was literally trying to do. He thought he was doing the right thing by doing it. There was no ill intention when they were making that. I think just like it was just, it's just when you're trying to do the right thing and maybe it just doesn't come out the way you expect. It's just like there's like that Warner Brothers one. It comes out like the exact same time too, and they're like we're gonna make this one. It's all gonna be kind of a black oriented cartoon, and we're gonna have it all have this like jazz theme and everything like that, and they almost just go so hard and like it almost becomes stereotypical because of it, but there was no ill intention. They literally got actual jazz guys that come by, like they liked all this stuff. It's just I think it's more like some of those things in hindsight too look worse than they really were at the time.
I think if Walt would have handled that situation differently when it came out, and like because it was the whole controversy about he wasn't even allowed to go to the premiere.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actor's name right now, but like if he would have taken more of a stand with that kind of stuff and been more like, proactive on that end, I think it would have changed the narrative around the whole thing. Like, I don't think people would have the negative look for it. And a lot of people don't. They're like actual activists out there. They're like, no, you're honoring his family, and you could have that there. They would get the money from the royalties from it. Like, it's a mixed bag. But man, you can go watch it on, I think, Internet Archive. They have a really good copy of it on there.
I know. I downloaded it from there just to make sure that it didn't disappear.
Yeah.
So I could have a copy. Apparently, it was only released in Australia, which we all know that's probably why. In Australia, they're probably like, well, we don't see anything wrong with this film. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
we last thing, and I'll say, kind of wrapping up with that too. We had I'm not even gonna say who it is, but there's a club that frequents the Alamo in Raleigh. Mm-hmm. And one night they were doing like some Southern thing. I don't know what they were doing, but they had all this amazing food. They had like fried chicken and all kinds of like Southern. It was a Southern thing, fried okra, which is my favorite. Ooh. That's my favorite food. Fried okra is my number one favorite food, and it was so good. Biscuits. And I went into the theater, and this person had he was showing. Typically, when they do this club, it wasn't like one feature; it was like a lot of little stuff. He had pieces of Song of the South on film, from France, and it was a really interesting thing to see. It wasn't the whole movie, but I seen it on the big screen for just a few minutes, and it was weird. And it was definitely, you know, I probably have to even cut. I'm not even gonna say where I saw that. I'm probably have to cut that part out. But it was. They definitely were not supposed to do it. They would have gotten in big trouble. But it was cool to see. It was really, really cool to see for a minute. But yeah, we're all supposed to keep our mouth shut about that. Here I am talking about it on the podcast. But it wasn't the whole movie, and there was one scene that was in French, I believe. But it was still cool to see.
Oh, yeah, well, to me, that stuff should always be preserved as like historical footage. Like, I think you should never like hide all that stuff. I think it's wrong to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those ones. If you want, you can have that stupid like little text beforehand that
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, if that's all it takes, but you should never edit. You should never, you know what I mean? Like, I think, especially for the fact that that movie was not made in ill intentions. It's not like that was not Walt was trying to do what he thought was best, and it came out a little funny. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. It's the music and it's good. Nobody can tell me that music in that movie is not fire.
Yeah,
Zippity Doo Dah is awesome, but. Well, anyway, thank y'all for hanging out with us, talking about Disney movies, and we're going to keep doing these and new Analog Legends podcast. We got all kinds of nostalgic topics that we're going to do, top 5 lists. We got some commercial specials that we want to do. We probably do that in a few episodes when we figure out the logistics around it, but there's a lot of ideas that we have. So stick around if you like nostalgic stuff. Right now, I don't have any particular social media for this, and I don't know if I ever will, but you can always find me on X at via VHS. You can find me on TikTok at via VHS. Always, you can go to oldmanorange.com and find all the things that Spencer does, and Old Man Orange podcast and Pizza Boys and all those great things. So be sure to check all that out, but way more Analog Legends to come. We've got some more via VHS reviews that I'm working on right now. And any last thoughts or feelings or ideas that you want to share before we get out of here?
No, I think that wraps it up with our little Disney fun-filled fest. Now I kind of want to go see some of those special features that we talked about. I think especially the Emperor's New Groove one, that kind of excites me. I'm going to try to look for a special edition of that one because that behind the scenes sounds kind of cool.
It's a documentary that somebody was doing independently about the animation process. And it just so happens they picked a movie that turned out to be a giant fucking shit show. And it was, for all I know, is that Emperor's New Groove was not supposed to be that movie. It was supposed to be completely different. I think a completely different setting, different cast. I don't even think it was supposed to be the Emperor's New Clothes. I think it was supposed to be a completely different story. And it somehow morphed it into this new thing, and it's just wild. And I want to sit down and watch the whole thing, but I'll find it and send it to you.
Okay, I look forward to that because that was like the real interesting takeaway. I'm like, that throws some new light on Emperor's New Groove and makes for a good rewatch.
There you go. Well, anyway, thank y'all for listening. Tune in to Analog Legends, and y'all have a good one, and we're out.